This video is sponsored by the new deck-building roguelike Union of Gnomes. Stick around at the end to find out more. My name is Benjamin Yahtzee Wildebeest Crowshaw, and like many men my age, I struggle with Souls-like fatigue. It started so innocently. I was at a party, happily smashing my head against a boss fight for hours on end, when someone I knew and thought I trusted sidled over and said, "Hey, you want to make this party even more fun? Ever tried a little bit of not playing Souls-likes?" And well, I was taken aback. Of course, we've all gone through those just say no to not playing Souls-likes assemblies at school, but part of me was curious, so I tried it. And I only realized I had a problem when I was not playing as many as 15 Souls-likes a week. I should document my relationship with Souls-likes because for the longest time, really liking Dark Souls was a core part of my identity. I was proud of the fact that I knew my way from Undead Burg to Blighttown backwards, that I knew the exact steps necessary to keep Solaire alive, and how to get to Ash Lake, and could advise new players to play the Knight class at first and keep their shield up. But it wasn't like that from the very start. Demon's Souls initially left me cold. I didn't see the appeal in this obtuse, poo-coloured action RPG that kept smashing my face through the back of my skull the moment I walked up to a combat encounter, and I had much the same experience with Dark Souls when I first played it, not getting much further than the Taurus demon. Still, there was definitely something there that lingered in my mind because a few months later I found myself watching a Let's Play of Dark Souls in which a new player was guided and advised by several smug-sounding friends. What I've realized in hindsight is that Dark Souls is a game designed to be experienced as a community. The intended message from the very first time a giant fist made of beef jerky pounds you into a grease stain is that yes, you are a tiny, pathetic, helpless ant in the face of the universe, but even an ant can steal a picnic with the help of all its ant friends. I mean, the system for leaving messages and joining other people's games to help with bosses should communicate that well enough, but it's not just helping each other beat the game. The story is designed to be understood through community wikis and explanatory YouTube videos voiced by very pleasant-sounding Australian people. So once I'd learned a couple pointers, that you have to be unhollowed to summon help, and a high-stability shield can block a lot more damage than it seems like it should, etc., I went back and managed to get to the Gargoyle boss fight, and summoned a helper for it. Unusual for me in itself, since I tend to avoid online multiplayer, but this was all the benefits of playing with others and none of the drawbacks. They only came when I needed help, they didn't talk, and they pissed off when I was done with them. I wish all my relationships were like that. And with the beating of that specific boss, the love affair officially began. I'm very focused on the primary gameplay loop, as you know, and that's what was making me bounce off at first. Dark Souls has always had a bit of an obtuseness problem, but once I had picked up some fundamentals that it had been very bad at explaining, I clicked in a big way with the exacting, methodical nature of the combat, and when the world opened up, I loved the Metroidvania-esque intricacy of it all, the vistas, the exploration and discovery, the loose threads of plot to lead me down rabbit holes of online theorizing. And yes, I learned to love difficult boss fights. The satisfaction of victory paying off all those frustrating defeats became a new kind of intoxicating high. And the process of getting that high, trying over and over again to memorize the attack patterns and openings, became a relaxing, meditative experience and my new favorite way to second screen. So I played Dark Souls' brains out, back and forth and upside down and over the kitchen counter. And Dark Souls 2 as well. Yes, it's jankier, but the worst Dark Souls game is still better than most games. Bloodborne, I stuck my face right in that and jiggled it about going brr brr brr. Eye infections be damned. As the genre grew in popularity, I ate up some of the third-party Souls-likes too, like Salt and Sanctuary and Remnant from the Ashes. But it was around the time of Dark Souls 3 that I felt a change in my feelings. I played it through to the end, of course, but every time I've tried to replay it the way I've done the others over and over again, I get bored and just stop. Something about it doesn't hit the way I like. The expected sprawling labyrinthine world was now a touch too labyrinthine and hard to mentally map, and I couldn't shake the feeling the series was repeating itself. But the Souls-like fatigue was growing even in the non-Souls realms. I dropped off of Sekiro long before it was over, and I still haven't finished even the non-DLC part of Elden Ring. Now, there's a lot I like about Elden Ring. It has those classic Dark Souls vibes, and it's got a tortoise in a Pope hat. A lot of the bootleg third-party Souls-likes think they have to be unrelentingly grim and hopeless the whole way through, but the secret spice in From Software's stuff is that little hint of wackiness. Tortoise Pope, mushrooms that punch really hard, putting top hats on the weird little dudes in the checkpoints in Bloodborne. It's like the salt in salted caramel, enhancing rather than distracting from the flavour. But if I were to put my hand on my heart, I stopped playing Elden Ring because doing so felt like an obligation I was trying to avoid. Why? The simple answer might just be that it was too hard. Souls-likes as a genre have been trying to one-up each other on difficulty for years, since it's what's popularly considered the core identity of Dark Souls. Souls. I'm fairly confident in saying they've been getting objectively harder. I can see the well-actually brigade out there preparing statements. Are you sure Dark Souls 1 and 2 don't just feel easier because you're more used to them? Or maybe your hands are starting to seize up with age-related arthritis? Bitch, I'm 41. That's not the fucking Twilight years. I know Souls-likes are getting harder because I played through the Demon's Souls remake when it came out on PS5, which I was almost entirely unfamiliar with, and I was astonished by how easy it was now my skills had gone through the Dark Souls mill. Everything folded pretty easily to the standard technique of bait and attack, dodge behind them, then stab them in the bum. It was also nice to see variety on display in the boss fights. Dark Souls 1 bosses weren't all sword fights with fat armored dudes. Sometimes they'd test other skills. You'd fight a giant butterfly that only does magic damage and where you're kind of fucked if you don't have ranged attacks. Or the gaping dragon fight, less about clever dodging and more getting the fuck out of the way of a giant scaly freight train. These days I feel like every Souls-like boss flails madly around in a way specifically designed to counter the bait dodge stab in the bum technique, with a weapon hitbox the size of a parking space that snaps to your position if you don't dodge on the right nanosecond. And always with the bloody fainting too. And ooh, you know what I really can't stand? Unexpected second phases. As I said, the relief of getting that last bit of health off the bar is a big part of the high. If the dude just gets straight back up again with full health, it gives me relief blue balls. And now every time I die, I have to slog through the entire first phase again before I can even start learning to counter the second phase attacks. This might feel like standard Souls-like practice now, but it might surprise you to reflect and realize that not a single boss in the original Dark Souls pulls this shit. Well, Ornstein and Smaug do, arguably. But at least there's a fucking cutscene establishing why the surviving one comes back for a second phase. At least it's not the dude dropping to one knee for all of 2 seconds, then popping back up, going, oh boy, now I'm really mad. So Souls-likes are getting harder, and logically the more they do, the more players are going to drop off as they hit their personal ceilings, when the high of the success no longer outweighs the frustration required to get it. Oh, you may laugh at me for hitting my ceiling, but how high does your stucco go, mate? At the same time, blaming my Souls-like fatigue on difficulty feels like too simple an answer, ironically. It could be good old-fashioned fatigue, because there's so many of the bastards now, and they're always an arse to get through in the course of a week for the sake of a timely review. Part of the appeal of Dark Souls for me was the way the game basically turned into a lifestyle choice. I'd want to poke around in every obscure corner and go deep into the weeds looking for lore. And the thought occurs that one can only have the headspace for a limited number of games like that. So when the lore-heavy Souls-likes get too thick on the ground, they run into the problem new MMOs and live services have. You can't ask us to get that invested in every Lords of the Fallen come lately that rolls around. But there's hope for us Souls-like fatigued. I've actually played multiple Souls-likes lately that have stirred my asset again. I enjoyed both Another Crab's Treasure and Nine Souls enough to play them to completion. Part of that came from them being easier than their contemporaries, yes, although towards the end, Nine Souls is an absolute bitch for bosses with secret second phases. But the other part of it was that I appreciated their stories and their characters and their worlds and their unique gameplay ideas. And that's the lesson that today's Souls-likes need to take aboard as they pursue their difficulty arms race. Dark Souls' hardness was always part of the package. It also had atmosphere and environmental storytelling and punch mushrooms, and most importantly, innovation. You've established to my satisfaction that you can make a game hard. Maybe we could focus on the other stuff for a while. Or to summarize, you can't bring me off just by spanking me anymore. You have to at least do it while wearing those special underpants I like.
This video is brought to you by Union of Gnomes, the deck-building roguelike where you stack together groups of bearded men to bring down your favorite fairy tale characters. The treacherous Snow White has used her enchanting voice to enslave your kind, and it's up to you to lead the gnome uprising. Free your fellow height-impaired comrades, gain new cards and playable heroes as they join your ranks, and work towards putting a stop to her oppressive rule. See the end of the gnome oppression in the story mode, or try to survive the infinite gameplay of Never-Ending Nightmare. It's up to you to build a deck with perfect game-breaking synergy as what I assume is a group of non-speaking rappers. You know, because in Union of Gnomes, the G is silent. Union of Gnomes hits early access on July 18th, so head on over to the Steam page and start your uprising today. Boo all you want.